Eddie from the Voodoo Glow Skulls. Welcome. Thank you for your time
Uh,
today, sir.
How's it going, man? Thanks for
This
having me.
this is like the GOAT legend. When you actually confirmed that you would do an interview, I was stoked because, like I was telling you before we started, you are my youth. It was you and Rancid that were my youth.
That's great company to be in, man. That's great. That's awesome.
We have the latest album was Living in Apocalypse, which was in 2021. What would you guys consider your genre to be?
Uh,
It's more
Man,
hardcore-ish, right?
that's. I mean, I've said that we're a ska punk band before to keep it basic, I guess, because that's what we kind of end up being, like a ska punk band, I guess, at the end of the day. On just to throw a couple of terms there to not confuse everybody, but I don't know. My brothers and I always thought of us as a different, like a rock band, like in our own little trip. You know what I mean?
Right.
And not to sound like it's a conceited thing, it's just like we always thought for sure we have our own thing. Like, I mean, just by listening to the band, it's like you either like it or you don't. It's not. It's one of those weird, it's one of those styles that's, it's not poppy ska at all. Like ska isn't really known to be that punk or that heavy.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, all these years later, you got like a whole like genres of like kind of like metal ska and this kind of, it's like
Right.
whoa, it's like people took it far. We just wanted to be a little bit heavier than like the specials, I guess, and stuff, and like a little, take it a little bit further than like Fishbone or somebody.
Right. Well, when I first heard you guys, it was in the mid '90s, and that would have been the Epitaph era, I believe, right? Around
Yeah,
94, 95.
yeah, which would have been I guess the era that I guess put us on the map, so to speak. That kind of put us to where we could kind of travel around the world and like have these anniversaries. I mean, now it's just my younger brother and I who
Mm-hmm.
are the principal songwriters in the band. We're the only ones left from the original four, which that was the original Voodoo Glow Skulls was like a four piece
Mm-hmm.
from 1988 to around 91, 92 ish. We were mostly just a four piece that always wanted to, like, we were more like on the sort of wanted to be somewhere between, I guess Operation Ivy and like Bad Religion or No Effects, kind of on that trip
Right.
then, you know, and but we always really loved Fishbone. That was a big deal. Is the horns and like the craziness of having like a 6 or 7 piece band that there was a lot to look at, and they looked cool and they sounded cool and they had style, and they were from LA, so punk rock scene stuff too. So that catered to us because my older brother kind of got my younger brother I into like the two tone, like the British ska thing back in the '80s. So that was a big deal. And then Fishbone was there all of a sudden, and they were right down the block. I mean, they're right down the freeway. So when you're young, when you're like 14 and 15, and the Fishbone, the first EP is out, and
Right.
you hear Party at Ground Zero, it's like whoa. It's like for me that for even being like a metal kid, a punk rock kid, that for some reason was like, whoa, that's a cool genre just on its own craziness. And I think at that time they caught us at that age, I guess, where we were in, because we always, to go back to the genre question, man. we, you know, uh, that's, I guess that all sums up that whole thing is we've kind of been all over the place. We've always kind of wanted to do it all and like be like, I guess the Voodoo Glow Skulls would be a mixture of all these influences, like most people,
Mm-hmm.
like you mix it up, and to some people it wasn't necessarily like the best mixture or the ideal. We used to catch some stuff. We used to get some shit like back in the early days, like our first road trip to like Tucson. We played kind of like a sort of back then like a proper ska show with kids in suits and like rude boys, and
Right.
we were this band playing punk, like fast, like West Coast style, trying to sound like No Effects and Bad Religion too.
Mm-hmm.
And we would get notes on our van written on like with lipstick after the shows. That was a memory where we're like, oh, people really protect their scene and don't kind of hate you, like you mixed your chocolate with my peanut butter, that kind of thing. So we got that kind of early on, and it kind of formed a sort of like a chip on our shoulder in a way, at least in the early days when you're young,
Right.
you know. Now, is an older dude that just has been around the block, and we've toured around the world and had somewhat of underground success. At least, we've been able to keep this going. Now it's like, oh, that was funny. That kind of formed our band in a way, like formed a lot of our, a lot of our backbone was like,
Right.
oh yeah, when there's gonna be like, oh yeah, there's even bullies in like the music scene. There's gonna be people. There's people that hate you no matter what, even though you're like a happy-go-lucky band doing your thing and you're young. People are gonna write notes and leave them on your band.
Right. Well, when you guys got started, it didn't seem like the genre was as I remember in the mid 90s. You had your street punk, you had your oi, you had your ska, then you had your pop punk, and it really was very divided. It seems like
Mm-hmm.
these days we're more accepting of the different genres of punk and hardcore and stuff like that. And I always thought you guys had a lot of hardcore elements, and that might have been a West Coast thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. I mean, people recognize. I mean, we get called like everything from a ska band, straight
Right.
ska band, and when we get called like a ska band, which is a lot, like in articles, we get quite a bit of press, for like I said, being this like I don't know, for like a '90s band. I mean, we have a new record out that I'm just as proud of, but when you have these like things you get called, you just kind of have to roll with it,
Right.
like, and it's like it's all part of the deal. But whenever we get called certain things, I always think about the people that are really into that pure genre. You know
Right.
what I mean? It's like putting a dagger through the heart of like a I don't know, fucking Desmond Decker or somebody, some pure some ska dude that I probably like,
Right.
like. But that's funny stuff with like the whole genre thing. But we're very much a hardcore band too, and you know, I mean, teach his own what they want to like consider us, but like
Right.
I consider us we're very much influenced by like New York, like the New York hardcore thing, and like the West Coast, like the Revelation Records thing here too, and both because they're kind of I mean, they had bands from all the coasts, of course, but both of the hardcore scenes were a big deal to us when we came up. Um, so we're very much a hardcore band too.
34 years. Okay, I thought it was 35. I thought I had the 35th, anniversary interview, but we'll go with 34 right now. I'll come back next year and get you for the 35th. But
Yeah.
I mean, you think about that, like we've gone through, I was looking, before this, 7 presidents. You guys have outlasted 7 presidents as a band. You've seen the music industry completely change. When you guys
Yeah.
started, there wasn't even CDs yet, were there? Like that wasn't a common thing.
That was like starting to be a thing, but we were I remember going to this place called Spectra Tape. It was in Fontana, California. And I drive by it lately because there's a restaurant now that I go to that's right. It's like a vegan spot that happens to be in this weird part of town over there. In a, like industrial part of town. And the sign was still up there recently, and that's where we got our first cassettes made.
Okay.
And that was back in the day where like you looked up in the phone book and you found like the cassette maker place, and
Right.
that there was one in Fontana, which is about 15 minutes outside of Riverside, and yeah, there was a cassette place there where I remember going there and we gave them like our master cassette, and it took a few weeks, and we ended up with box of cassettes with I think they did the printing and like the shrink wrap. I remember all our first demo doing that, and you make like your first like 200 cassettes or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
How'd you get into music?
We got into music, I want to say basically through our parents, like their first music collection. Like they had vinyl. It seems like at least our parents, there was 3 boys, and we all 3 ended up in this band. My parents they didn't seem like they're musical at the end, like, well, like in they're like later life,
Mm-hmm.
because I think they were too preoccupied with work and kids, man.
Right.
But at the beginning, when you're like younger, there's a record collection still,
Mm-hmm.
and some parents I think don't have time. I think that's what it was in their case, because there was an intact record collection that was there the whole time up until my dad, like passed away about 8 years ago. That record collection's still somewhere, I think, with my mom or something. But so that was always kind of there. And then my brother, we had that, and then that we used to get we used to get 45s, like the 45 singles,
Mhm.
like before they were called 7 inches.
Right.
Like in the late 80s and the early 90s, like the punk rockers kind of took it over, and it was called a 7 inch, and that's what you got made after cassettes and stuff. You got your vinyl, like your hit vinyl stuff. That
Right.
was like early 90s, like a late thing. Um, but yeah, we started getting that stuff done too. But I mean, there was 8 tracks that was a thing.
That's right.
Yeah,
Jeez. You guys were on Epitaph, then you went to Victory. You've done some. I was shocked to find out that you guys were on a compilation soundtrack with the rap label Priority Records. Not a Voodoo Glow Skull label for sure. But how did you
yeah.
guys stay so resilient? Because a lot of bands, they got with one label and that was done. Like, you guys have always been able to, I don't want to say reinvent yourself, but you guys have always been able to just go from one thing to the next as a business, as a band.
You just have to decide if you love it or not, and if you're into it. I mean, this is all we really do. I mean, we have other things that we have. I mean, I have a recording studio that I've run for years. It's kind of like just like a side hustle, But once you get a taste, man, you just stay with it.
Mm-hmm.
At least in my case, because I mean, I started this thing like in the edge of my bedroom when I was 17, man. So
Right.
it's like once you get a taste of it and you get like a real taste of what you can do with the things that you create, I think like, I mean, not to be cheesy, but like art, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's called art, like to some. Um, how do you quit that? Like for
Right.
better, it's like a for better or for worse thing, even if you are playing a little jazz club one day by yourself, which probably where I'll end up, not, because I mean, funny enough, you start off at this kid learning 3 chords and punk and like metal was a big deal first,
Mm-hmm.
and ska, and it's all like, I'm not gonna say limited, but as you become older, like a 50-year-old dude, you go, oh yeah, jazz is crazy and hard. That's like the next level. That's like the calculus. That's like that's like the next level shit, right? So
Right.
guess who tries to practice jazz and learn like bebop jazz now? Me.
Right.
That last guy I thought would be into that when I was into Jakey Lee and like Ozzy Osbourne, you
Right.
know. So or like Maiden or whatever, So it's kind of funny that you end up like that. You just change a little bit. At least me, you
Mm-hmm.
know. But I still love all that other stuff. Of course, that's my shit. You know what I mean?
What do you guys have coming up this year for 2023?
Well, we've been working on the new stuff for a while. We have an album's worth of material for sure,
Mm-hmm.
and then some. We've recorded 4 drum tracks already, which are like the foundation, as most people know when you track an album. So we're already started to record it. We're about 4 songs in. We have about at least 10 more that we should and are going to record at some point. It's just like a slow going thing for us these days, just kind of like the last album. We didn't know if there was going to be one at first because we had to change into the guard. I mean, we got a brand new singer, which we didn't think would ever happen.
Mm-hmm.
And once my brother left the band at that point, we thought we were just going to kind of retire or stop for a minute, and we were getting ready to make an announcement at that point and just be like, hey, it's been a nice 30 years or whatever. We're going to bow out. But we ended up getting an email from Ephraim, and it worked out. We played a giant first show with him, and it put us in a position to have some to have some visibility, and it worked out. And it's worked up now up until these like 5 years now.
Right.
It turned into 5 years later. So that record ended up happening. I think mostly that's why, I mean, hence the theme and like the title of the record
Mm-hmm.
is that's a pandemic record, man.
Right.
That's a pre-pandemic Trump era, post-Trump era record. That it's just a comment on that time.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
It,
And
it
that,
was it was a political album. It was definitely a
yeah,
political album, not overtly, but it was very well thought out as a political album.
yeah.
So
I mean, it ended up being pretty much a theme record or like almost a concept. I mean, to be honest with you, we were saying that at the end. We are like,
mm-hmm.
dude, It ended up being kind of like a concept thing in a way without being, too. But then again, we don't never wanted to be like a band that just does that. We're always want to make people have a good time and have people kind of forget that stuff in a way too, and
Hmm.
just live it up, man. And you have to work the whole week most of the time, and have other stuff to do. Kids, and not that kids are bad, kids and pets and blah blah blah, all this stuff, life and mortgages, and so you don't necessarily always want to hear that at the punk rock show or the ska show.
There's nothing romantic or sexy about sleeping on someone's couch at 30. There's just not.
Oh yeah.
You
Oh yeah,
know.
we've kind of done all that stuff with going on the road, and we still kind of sacrifice some things on the road. You end up on these cool shows that make you look awesome and big posters and big flyers, but it's not always what it seems. When you dig down and have to be on the road for weeks, and
Right.
and you're playing like a Tuesday, and pick a town in small town America or small town Germany.
Right.
It ends up being the same for a lot of people that are DIY. You know what I mean? But it just depends on where you're at, man.
In 2023, where will you guys be touring, or will it just be kind of the album that you're going to be focused on finishing?
We're getting back to that too. We're doing a little bit of both, man. We're slowly working on a record in between life. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
how we've been doing it. That's how the last one was made. Is the being kind of locked down kind of helped us kind of buckle down and do it,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not that much of a difference of the way we've been recording these last new tracks. Is we just find the time that week and we will set up the drum kit and record a couple of drum tracks that week and call them done when they're done, and then we have two more in the notepad that's
Right.
ready to go, and it slowly ends up being a record throughout the year in between uh like weekends.
Mm-hmm.
We're pretty much a band that we'll do weekends and try to fill that up with worthwhile events. I hate saying that, but at this level,
Mm-hmm.
you want it all to be like, oh, we're doing this festival gig, or oh, we're doing this road trip with this cool band, and that's how we like to do it. And or we'll fly in a lot and do like fly in gigs to a certain country or a certain state to play some event. That's how it is these days for the most part. And then there'll be a tour like a few times a year. There'll be a couple tours that are pretty substantial. We're about to announce some stuff that I can't announce yet, but we're going out with a pretty popular ska punk band from the '90s,
Okay.
and
Cool.
we're gonna team up and do some East Coast and some Southeast, which is we're overdue for that part of the country right now. So for us, it's going to be the perfect band to team up with. So we're doing that in July. So that's for about 2.5 weeks, and then
Okay.
in August we're going to Europe for 3 weeks, and that's mostly to do festivals and then some clubs in the middle for 3 weeks in August, and then there's another tour in the works with another East Coast ska band, more of a traditional ska band, which I can't announce yet, which is in the works for December, and that's more of a West Coast Pacific Northwest tour. And
Okay.
that's another band from our same era that's we don't sound like at all. It's like almost like the polar opposite kind of ska. But we're gonna team up with another band, so it's cool. And they're both good like '90s bands that are same caliber or the same
Mm-hmm.
same level, I think. Um, so there's good stuff in the works.
Do you,
And then we're actually have a free Fishbone show, like one of my all time favorite bands.
yeah.
And probably our biggest influence for like ska and punk. We happen to have our second show of the year is with Fishbone for free in Long Beach, man.
Oh, nice. Okay. Are you going to
Yeah,
be coming to Nashville? Any of
Nashville.
those tours?
Well, I think so. I think on the tour in July.
Okay, because it's been a
I,
minute since you guys have been in Nashville.
yeah, last time was with the Reverend Horton Heat, where we played a proper club show.
Yes.
So a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but we've been to the Nashville area because we played the Muddy Roots Festival,
Okay.
which isn't proper Nashville, but it's like the outskirts.
Yeah.
It's a festival that's kind of considered, I guess, that area. But we did that, which is pretty awesome festival, man. It's like I guess like a hillbilly punk festival.
Yeah.
Like kind of like kind of crusty punk rock mixed with everything, man. Like, you know, like metal, and they have ska bands and ska punk bands in the mix, and there's like a like there's like countrified kind of like all the genres, man. It's of
Right.
that style, you know.
So do you you handle the booking? Like, or is it just is it at the point now where you're just contacting friends about working on tours, or is there agents that get involved, or how does that go about for you guys?
We've always had a booking agent, or like a booking agency,
Mm-hmm.
kind of handle our stuff since, want to say since around 92,
Mm-hmm.
93. We were lucky enough to get on an agency fairly early. Once we started to do pretty well in like the local clubs, we branched out. How it happened, this is a little small story. We hooked up with a band called Skankin' Pickle,
Mm-hmm.
which is like a kind of like a pretty underground and like a legendary ska punk band that kind of started a kind of like if you ask me, they kind of started. They're more responsible for, like, to me, a lot of like the Orange County third wave kind of poppier, kind of sillier ska sound in a
Right.
way, you know, sort of campy ska. Um, they were great. They were like an entertaining ska band, kind of like Fishbone, but more out there,
Mm-hmm.
more kids party, you know, more a
Right.
little bit more wacky. I mean, they had a bass player that rode like on a unicycle and would ride it off the stage
Right.
and play the bass with like a wireless bass, like on a unicycle, man, in the middle of the crowd. That's like crazy, you know. So they were cool, and they had a guy that did like a Hulk Hogan impression, and that was a fun time, you know. But it started with like that stuff, if you ask me. But what was the question again, man? I got so caught up in my own head that,
Well, I was like about booking, and I mean, are you guys? Do you just contact
yeah,
friends at this point, or how does it go?
uh, because of that band, I got so caught up in this Hank and Pickle and how like cool they were at that time. Uh, they kind of befriended us, man. We kind of opened up for them, and they hooked us up. And because of Mike Park, who's Mike Park from Asian Man Records
Mm-hmm.
fame, who is like a, you know, a ska kingpin in his own right.
Right.
He's one of the dudes that has kept it alive this whole time. His band was Hank and Pickle. That was like one of his. That was his baby at the time, I think. And I think up until, you know, they stopped was his thing. He hooked us up. He got
Mm-hmm.
us our first booking agency, which ended up being the Tahoe agency, which is Rick Bondi, who ended up booking Blink One. He ended up being Blink 182's guy, who ended up being huge, obviously. So
Right.
he rode the the Blink to Blink 182 name change wave, and watched them just. He was there when he pretty much retired. I don't know what I should be saying, but he pretty much retired after Less Than Jake and Blink 182 both kind of blew up. He retired, and he was their booking agent.
Right.
And and then I should also mention he was also Sublime's booking agent.
Jeez.
So I mean, what does
Yeah.
that tell you?
Yeah.
Right when all that was blowing up, we were alongside Skanking Pickle. We were like the more like the ska punk kind of backyard party bands.
Right.
And then right then Sublime took off, and he got Less Than Jake, and he got Blink 182. And we actually did some shows with all those bands back then because we were on the same roster. And there you go. It all happened. You know, it became a huge agency kind of overnight.
Right.
And and then that was when the Epitaph thing was starting to happen for us. We were about to get signed from Dr. Strange to Epitaph. And that's when we were able to kind of have a booking agent, I think, for the rest of our career up until now, because it's
Mm-hmm.
just kind of comes with the territory once you're in it, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Unless you, I think, burn a lot of bridges or, you know, kind of mess
Right.
things up, you could continue to work. And thankfully, we've been able to continue to at least stay in it enough to, you know, be a working band and work as
Mm-hmm.
much as we can or are able to.
Mm-hmm.
Once we want to, you know, once we put out some new music or want to stay in it, we've always liked to stay in it more of a like a legacy band too. You know, I like when my favorite bands play classic songs
Right.
and play the old, you know, the old shit. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm all about it. That's why we still do that, and we'll always continue to do that because I've been let down by my favorite bands a little bit. You know, when
Right.
they play a bunch of new material, it's a little bit self-serving,
Right.
and it's like, well, you got success at some point and you're able to stick around because people support you. So think about that and the people that have to go to work and that buy your, I mean, at least in our case, have been buying tickets for 15 to 25 bucks for 30 years. You know what I
Right.
mean? So it's like, I think about that. So,
I saw
and I have fun playing the old stuff. So,
I saw Skank and Pickle play with Five Iron Frenzy
oh yeah, that's about right.
back in the day, and I didn't know who they were at the time. And
Yeah.
what is going on here? Because like you said, I mean, it's a free for all with that band and such a
Yeah.
great band. Were you affected at all with the Victory when Victory Records sold the catalog? Was any of the Voodoo Glow Skull stuff, was that compromised? Like, is it still available? Because that was a question I was asked to ask you.
It actually is, and they actually made some vinyl, I believe. Right, it had to have been already. The change had to have been happening already, or maybe. I mean, I don't even know how fast that kind of stuff happens.
Mm-hmm.
But am I allowed to say this? Well, let's just say things got better when they got acquired. And I mean, I don't have to say the history. I don't have to go into a bunch of
You
a
can
bunch of
go.
negative
You can Google it
stuff.
for other bands. Other bands that are
Yeah,
on the
but I
label. You
mean,
can Google it.
yeah, I mean, if there's the controversy there, but to be fair to Tony, which is the original owner, um, we got treated pretty well, man. We stepped in, I think, from a period where we were like I want to say a pretty known Epitaph Records man, and
Mm-hmm.
have done pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
We were more on the successful side of things. I mean, judging by what we sold, and we've been able to do it this far. Um, he was glad to have he seemed glad to have an Epitaph Records band. So we walked into kind of a good position on our end. We were kind of
Right.
treated I want to say a little bit better than maybe a new band,
Mm-hmm.
possibly, at least from my experience. He was cool to us and he
Mm-hmm.
was nice enough, and we pretty much got treated pretty fair with all the artistic things, and we had all the freedom. It seemed like a couple of employees were a little bit more on the straight edge hardcore side, so when we try to present a couple of things that were like went along with the image of our band,
Right.
being like, we're the West Coast thing, man. We can't even help it. We wear it on our sleeve, and it's not like West Coast East Coast thing necessarily, but like, you are what you are,
Right.
So I mean, Voodoo Glow Skulls are known for a certain style, look, whatnot, and it seemed like the only thing was a couple people kind of didn't get, like, oh, like, we're kind of from this hardcore straight edge thing, and you know, we may have had some weed, like, I mean, some weed references in our home video, or little things in the background, or things that people didn't agree with, or somebody may have had a beer in their hand in a video, something.
Right. Right.
And it turned into being a little bit of like, do we belong here?
Right.
Like, it seems like the owner wanted a band like us, and we did okay there. It sustained us for those 3 albums or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of made it. We were a traveling working band. We went to Europe every year or every few years. We did, what we could in the US. We kind of did our thing, um,
Well,
for those
like
years.
with like Victory, their whole thing was artist tour, play shows, play shows, play shows. So you already had that built in. And I remember when it was announced that you guys were basically moving from Epitaph over to Victory, and you got a bunch of people who don't really understand it. They're loyal to the Punkaramas and all that. And it was like, what are they going to Victory for? That's where all the, emo people are and the hardcore. And they were
Yeah,
great. They were
that's
great
exactly it.
albums.
That was weird. Well, that was the time. I mean, back to being around for so long, that was pretty much us deciding, well, hey, we don't have to make another, like, I guess our pinnacle, or at the time would have been like the middle of the 90s, around, well, like around 96, 97. We put out these 3 Epitaph albums in a row, like pretty much
Mm-hmm.
almost every year. So that was the time. So yeah, that made sense for then. But like, to be a surviving band that still loves what you do and still has ideas in your head, and like kind of can't get away from it still. Like, we were still pretty much packing out shows or having pretty successful shows. And we've always been an underground band. So to sustain ourselves, we didn't live beyond our means as a band ever, really. I mean,
Right.
in that moment in the 90s, when we had a a song on K Rock for a minute, which kind of like that has branches all over the US because it's
Right.
K Rock. It's like, it's a big corporate radio station. So we had that going on for a minute for like a summer or two. Those branches reach far to where you're playing on some radio station and like, a weird part of like, you're getting played on a station like in Nashville once in a while or like
Right.
in Boston or some weird. So we did some radio shows. We didn't do a lot, but we were like that for that 90s thing, we got a little bit more of the love than like the underground. We were playing some radio shows where we would be the band playing at 3 p.m. at the Weenie Roast on the side stage, or we played the main stage at the Meadows in like Connecticut before, but at the end of the night was like, Beck and the Butthole Surfers or whoever had the big song, in 95, so we got to do a little bit of that and experience a more of like the big corporate thing too, and got a taste of both, so it's weird to have had kind of like two lives. We went through that and then we got to survive it and be like, oh, we kind of didn't really belong there, but we did, but didn't. So it's like, oh, cool. This is where we belong anyways. We'll play a punk rock coffee house in front of 300 kids and on a wherever. Cool, rad. And then we'll play Gilman again. No problem. Like, no, it's all like, this is what we do. And then, so all the extra big stuff was gravy, like the 90s. And even being on an Epitaph on like Epitaph was like playing with the rich kids' toys for a few years. I mean, not to be weird, but that's how it's like. I mean, I respect them, and I love them to death. And it's like you get to pop in and out, kind of, and be like, "Oh, we're a thing for a minute, and we get to play with the big boys' toys for a while. Thank you for the money. Thank you for investing in our band." That's what they do.
Right.
They invest in your band. You're the thing. They let you, thankfully we were in a place where it was like, for me, like the Motown of punk rock in the 90s. It was like, this is where you want to be. Like, like we try to get on Fat Records, which we were kind of more of a NoFX fans, but he wasn't as much of a fan of our punk rock stuff as our ska stuff. But right after we didn't really get on Fat, we ended up on Epitaph, which is like the label that Fat Mike was on himself.
Right.
So it was like, whoa, we ended up on the actual label that this guy's on, and we wanted to be on more on like his label,
right?
But we ended up on like the cream of the crop, like the big boys at the time. So thankfully, he kind of like wasn't into us as much as Epitaph, and Epitaph was into the first album, which was on Doctor Strange, and man, it pretty much made us be able to do this now, and part of the reason why we even were able to survive, or not even part, a big reason why we were still in like those clubs, and like we were in clubs in like France in like 2004.
Right.
Maybe people didn't know about us here as much, and maybe ska wasn't quite a good word. A ska punk wasn't a pretty word in like 2002 or 4, because people were talking about Thursday and Taking Back Sunday and like AFI, then. But we were still like going to France and touring 10 days in this country in Europe, and going to Spain and doing America. Still playing the same, cool punk rock shithole here that we always like, no problem. So it's always been, we've always kind of were able to survive because of both of the eras. Really the Victory Records thing sustained us and kept us going through the years, and we even got some like tour support, which I don't know if bands got. So I'm kind of saying the positive things about Victory, which is like probably taboo to say.
Right.
Like, because you know what the word on the street is, they fucked a lot of people over, and I will say this, he treated us pretty well. We got treated pretty much like a bigger label would treat you in a way for being DIY. And then when our contract was up, we just started to go really DIY and just kind of put out stuff out with our friends again, like Doctor Strange and like Smell of Us Records, just like just the really DIY guys, which is kind of the way we started. It's no problem, and it went back to the underground again, back to where like, oh well, we've kind of always done this, and because of that 90s era, people still think about us in those terms too, so we get those people too. some of the, of course, a lot of the older crowd, a lot of it, so, and the band has changed so much, but we love it, man. We have a new singer that kind of got us this new energy for, I mean, half a decade now, man. It happened quick.
Right.
5 years of a new singer. People can't deny that. We've
Right.
we've been everywhere with them and have played some of the best shows in our career with the new lineup. I mean, straight up. I mean, some of my favorite moments have been these last, few years, and that's hard and crazy to say in a way because I have a whole era, and a lot of the memories are with my older brother being the singer. That's crazy to say, but it's been good to us the last 5 years, man. And I can't deny that we've been able to sustain ourselves and keep it going and put out this really DIY album, which is like, I mean, pretty much you have to be in the know again. Like,
Right.
you might get some people. We got some press love, and we got some. I mean, we got some Guitar World and some this and that, so it helped us a lot. Thankfully, people pay attention, but it wasn't a big press campaign, man. It was back to DIY roots with being an older name that people could recognize, and people sought us out, thankfully, and gave us some press. But we're back with the attitude like, oh yeah, back to the bedroom. Let's write songs again. Cool. Like, it's okay. I'll run my little studio and we'll do this and that to keep our band going. It's fine. And then thankfully there's still like it's still, we could still continue to sustain ourselves with being a band. It's not a bad thing. Everyone gets paid in our band, and it hasn't been an underground thing for so long that we love all the aspects of being in this little, I guess, I hate calling it that, but this band business thing. It's at our level, it's still like it's our life's blood, man. We still do it,
Do you feel like ska is making a comeback?
It looks like it. It looks like there's a new crop for sure. There's a new wave going on right now that I notice online, at least with these new bands, and some of them are booked by our same, like same guys that book us, So I hear about it and see it, and it's part of the deal, man. It's cool. It just makes it to where people get into the old stuff and into the older stuff and the stuff that influenced that stuff, and it's part of the deal. I'm stoked, because it means that there's always gigs.
Right.
For me, I always saw it as gigs.
Right.
Like, and a good time for good for everyone's soul to have bands like that around. If you ask me, you know what I mean? It's like, I remember being that kid that was seeking out ska bands when I first discovered, like, oh, there's more than just the Specials and Fishbone and like the Selector, or there's more than that. Ooh,
right.
There's a band doing it in San Diego in 1989. Badass, So like, I saw all that stuff out, just like metal bands. There was a moment when I was seeking out, and still do seek out, like, what's the craziest metal band I could find, and the craziest metal looking like font like that will scare people, and how does that band sound?
Right.
It goes the same with ska and punk rock for me. It's just we happen to be, or me at least, I happen to be doing it with a lot of genres, like, and it's cool stuff, But yeah, there's definitely a new wave, and there'll be a new wave after that, So it's cool. It's there. We end up playing with bands, a lot of new bands, and it's badass to see it and cool to be a part of it. A lot of people end up discovering you because they didn't know you existed, and they go see this young band, and all of a sudden you're something where you're on their radar now. I see us pop up on the radar. I see us not be, I mean, if unless you're totally closed off from the world, you notice that, oh, there's new people. There's a new kind of, like, I don't want to say it, but like a new sort of super fan for a minute pops up. There's a new kid at all the shows or not just kids, sometimes adult, a dad with her son going to all the shows for a minute. You see that. I've seen those eras,
Well, that's what I was going to ask you with Spotify, Apple Music, the streaming services. Are the Voodoo Glow Skulls getting introduced to a new audience? More, and that, that's the one thing. I mean, I know streaming has kind of killed CDs and everything, But the one good thing about it is that it's so easy for people to find new music, find new artists that they love. I know as an artist, it sucks a lot of times financially, but on a marketing level, it's, you know, it's pretty cool thing for you guys.
Yeah, I mean it is a fact. If you were making money in the '90s or even up until whatever 2010, I guess
Right.
9, 11, I don't know, 2012, it was a thing. I mean, it affected the big guy big time. Where I'm sure the big songwriter. I don't want to name names, but name a big artist went from if you were a songwriter, especially or a principal person on those albums or those songs, you know, you got a drastic hit into your income. Who knows what the percentage is, but like,
Right.
I mean, a drastic blow to your income. And then imagine the small guy in a punk band, a punk DIY band that was like probably. I mean, we we've always done okay with it, you know, because we've been smart about it, you know, and like we learned from our like punk rock, I guess, forefathers in a way to like, oh yeah, this is how you should do it. You know what I mean? You print shirts this way, you sell them for this one, you do the door prices at this much because more kids will come and they'll be, you know, they'll respect you, and that's how it should be anyways. And there's all these ethics, and then you get in the corporate, you kind of get brought into the corporate end of things because it's inevitable when you've been around for so long, and you do any kind of, I guess, business in the music business, you end up getting brought in a little bit. So, and then things change, man, you know, but it does help you. I mean, straight up, it helps you get noticed instantly if it's good. If it's good, and if you're talented in that genre, or you have something to say that's worthy, or it's some crazy art, and it could just be art. Like, I mean, not audio, not music. You know, it could just be a piece of art. If it's good, people see it instantly,
Right.
no matter what it is. Like a meme, a photo, a painting, a pair of tits, whatever it is. People see it kind of quick if they like it and want to see it. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's shared right off the bat. If you get lucky enough, and you could still get lucky now with that one song or that one video, man. If it reaches people that one way down to their soul or their heart or their brain or whatever, it's like, there you go. You turn into something, you know?
Absolutely. My last question for you. You currently have a brother still in the band.
Yep.
I have an older brother. I'm the youngest of three. How do you continue to do anything for 30 years with your brother? Because like I just think like my brother and I, we would not be able to do something together. So how do you guys not let it get in the way of the family?
It has, in a way. I mean, with my older brother, you know, I'm just being, you know, completely honest. We haven't been asked too much about that so much, because I think people either they don't pay attention quite as much, or they just don't want to go there, you know, or whatnot. Because he left the band in kind of a crazy way. You know what I mean?
That's why I focused on the brother that was still in the band.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's almost good to say. It's like, oh yeah, he decided to quit the band at a certain time when there's a bunch of turmoil in his life and things were going on in his personal life, and it spilled over into our band for a few years, you know. And he did what he did. And it was shocking for a minute and kind of surprising, and it was kind of like more of like for my younger brother and I, it was kind of like almost like a TMZ moment, because we don't like, we like mystique, man. I like being in a rock band, and like, you don't spill all the beans and be cheesy online, and I put all your stuff on Facebook, you know.
Right.
And we were never that type, and it ended up feeling like it was that kind of a moment for a minute, because the way he left the band live at a show in front of, you know, sold out show, said some things on a microphone, you know what I mean? And it was just like, oh, you know, it was like a gotcha moment for sure. Speaking of like a gotcha moment, it's like, whoa, what do we do? But we persevered, man. And that's an example of like how things don't work, to be honest with you. That's a big part of your question. I have no problem saying it, you know. It's life. Like, maybe you shouldn't be in your brother after 30 years. And you're lucky enough to have done a band with your brother or your family for that long, is how I see it now. in like perspective, I'm grateful for it, man. It's like we have these crazy records that there might not all be winners to some people. Some of them might not be winners at all to anybody. To a lot of people, it seems like they are. At least some of them.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a big part of it, you know. But we get to continue it as being like the dudes that started playing guitars in our bedroom and writing even the lyrics.
Right.
It was myself writing these first demo like in my bedroom, and I sacrificed my first bedroom when I was 17 for this band, you know, like for a rehearsal space, you know. So like the core of it has been there the whole
Mm-hmm.
time as far as the songwriting, you know. And I would never deny that, you know, those guys were there. That was the original lineup, was the original four, and then we had some original ish horn players for like a for like an era, you know. And we've had many eras of horn players now to where it's like it's cool in the gang, man. We have well, it's Earth, Wind, and Fire too, all wrapped into one. We'll take the different horn section, and we'll take the, oh, do you remember that guy that was a sax player for that era? He was badass. Cool. I think he was badass too, you know. But after a while, you realize, oh yeah, that guy was meant to be there at that moment, and
Right.
you're grateful for it. And some of the guys get to come back when they want. It's a kind of always been an open door policy to a certain extent with a lot of the original dudes and people that were the guys that, you know, that had their moments, you know. But my brother and I would just continue to you know, to try to get along, because that's what you do.
Right.
Is you try like anything, like a marriage or like brothers and like family. I rather get along with my brother and continue to do this ride that's been like, man, we're super lucky. I've done odd jobs, shit jobs here and there, and not had to work for eras of this band, and been lucky and get to chill in my house for a lot of it, and then get to work. And we'll have those years, man. We'll really have to hustle to keep our band going. But then we'll have even moments throughout that bad year that's supposedly a bad year,
Right.
where it's like, dude, how many rad shows did we get to do? Okay, like still having fun. People wear the merch. People listen to the record on their iPhone or iPad or whatever the next thing's going to be, directly implanted into your brain next. Like, oh, you want the new Voodoo song? Here you go. It's in your head now, and you can erase it when you want. You know, that's going to be next, I guess, or whatever it is. So,
Right.
yeah, dude, it's in our best interest to get along too. Is just as like for humanity's sake, as an example, as an example to humans. It's like, dude, get along with your family first, or try. You know. So yeah, and and to be end it all, dude. It's good fun, man. It's all in good fun. I have a good time touring and playing with my bro, you know, and having new people come in that we get along with, and our friends, and like the music, and like are there for the moments when they can be. You know,
Right.
it's mostly good times with all the eras of our band. It's been a good time for the most part. Now it's been real cool to us, man. We get to dip in and do cool things, and then when it's our time, and then we dip out when it's not our moment, and do our rest of our life, you know, whatever, and then get to be like, oh, we get to do Voodoo again for another year or 6 months and have this going on. Badass. There's interest right now. Sweet, you know. And then when there isn't, when there isn't for a while, there isn't. You roll with it, but somehow there's been interest kind of the whole time, man. For 34 years, there's been interest the whole time in our own niche or whatnot. You know, it's been there.
So how can people find you guys, talk with you, wait for the new album to come? Where can they give us the links?
The main thing is all the social media stuff, of course. Voodoo Glow Skulls official.com is the website. And that as the link to everything. Instagram is the big one lately, because that's where everyone seems to be at, or a lot of people. So the Instagram gets updated almost on a daily to a few times a week. So the Instagram is Voodoo Glow Skulls, just the name. Facebook, same thing. That's linked to the Instagram, so you'll get a lot of the same info. So if you're just a Facebook person, it's Voodoo Glow Skulls, name of the band, straight up. For Twitter, it's at Glow Skulls. for you serious people on the internet. Uh, Twitter. So we have a Twitter that's at Glow Skulls. The rest of them are Voodoo Glow Skulls. There's a YouTube page too that gets a lot of cool clips and a lot of our like friends that film us that we post kind of like cool like edited clips and our official videos. That's Voodoo Glow Skulls official at YouTube.
We'll link to all of it in the description.
Yep,
Eddie, I want
it's
to
all
thank
there.
you. I want to thank
Thanks
you
so
for
much,
your
man.
time. And when you get the new album and we got the tours, love to bring you back on the 35th anniversary of the band.
Oh yeah, man, I'm game, man. Let's plan on that. I'll be waiting for that, man. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, sir.